So here are my tips for Play-Doh. The first things first. So a lot of folks say, you know, do you have a dedicated center for that? Because I talk about the Play-Doh center a lot. And here's the deal. You don't have to have a dedicated Play-Doh center. What I like to say is a dedicated area, a designated area where the kids can use the Play-Doh. So if that's integrated into your art center or your wet and dry area, you know how you have, if you have a sensory table and you have an art easel and you have an art center, then you probably have the Play-Doh located somewhere near there. If you have carpet in the rest of your classroom, just to keep the floors from getting really disgusting. So it doesn't have to have its own dedicated center, so to speak, but I like to have an area that's designated as this is where the Play-Doh lives, quote unquote. So whether that's your art center, I've had it in many different places over the years, and my favorite place that I've ever had Play-Doh is on a child height counter. So in a couple of the different classrooms I've been in over the years, you know, teaching pre-K, you're kind of itinerant and get moved to wherever there is space for you and you're grateful for the job that you have. So a couple of classrooms that I had, we had very low child height counters because there was also a sink and all that. And I found that my kids would always stand when they played with Play-Doh. And I've said this before, I really feel like it's because they're putting pressure on the Play-Doh. And when they do that, they use their upper body and their trunk. And it just lends itself better to be played with standing upright. That's just what I've found. I found that if you put Play-Doh out at the table, they don't sit in the chairs. They'll either kneel or stand, but they don't sit in the chairs, and I don't expect them to. So I just put it at the counter and it works really well. But not all of us have that luxury, right? And I'm sitting here and I'm playing with the Play-Doh in my hands while I'm talking to you. So that's just how soothing it is. So you have to do with what you've been given. So other times I've had the different tubs of Play-Doh materials on the shelf in the art center. In some classrooms I've had where there's just absolutely no space, we take out the Play-Doh every day. I mean, it's just, you have to do what you have to do, right? So I do have tubs of Play-Doh materials because I really feel like if we throw all the Play-Doh materials into one giant bin that the kids get frustrated. Because what do we know about little kids and the way that they work, right? Their little brains work. They don't have a lot of persistence and a lot of patience to dig through stuff to find what they need. And their very first instinct, and this is normal for all little kids, is to appeal for help. So if you like getting asked every 2 seconds, teacher, I can't find the fill in the blank, then put it all into a giant bin by all means. But I find that when I separate out the different tools, it helps them find what they're looking for more quickly. That reduces frustration and increases engagement. So I have a tub, let me pick it up here for you, with cookie cutters. Now this tub is a little bit too full. I would not put all of these out at once. This is just because I had it stored with the lid on before I went live tonight, but take some of those out because you don't want to have too much of a good thing, right? Because then the cleanup becomes a problem. But I have my tub of cookie cutters and I have a little label there, and Tom will share with you in the comments below, if he hasn't already, the link to where you can get my free editable center tub labels. So like this label here is in that pack. It's over in our free Facebook group, Preschool Teachers Are Superheroes, along with all the other labels that you need to create an organized classroom that's clearly labeled, print-rich environment and all that. So I have a tub of cookie cutters, and that's all fine and dandy. I change out, like here's a pumpkin, like, you know, I wouldn't put this out all year long. So I kind of change the cookie cutters out according to what our unit of study is. So, you know, obviously I don't keep out some, like this one here. It's a bunny rabbit. I probably wouldn't put that out all year. But some of the common shapes will go out at the beginning of the year, some of the more common shapes, and some things that don't have, this one's just a really cool, like a a cookie cutter, real cookie cutter edge on it. So yeah, just pick and choose the ones. And my kids love it when I put new cookie cutters out, because then they come in and they go, oh, it's a bunny rabbit or it's a pumpkin or whatever. So it kind of keeps it fresh and exciting, but I'm not really changing the thing that's there. It's still a cookie cutter, it's just a different shape. But I do keep the standard shapes out all the time. So a tub of cookie cutters, that's one of my must-haves, right? And so one of the things I do first when I get the Play-Doh out at the beginning of the year is I teach the kids how to use the cookie cutters with the Play-Doh, because we can't assume that all parents do that at home, right? A lot of my parents, I'd say 90% of the parents I've worked with over the years, don't allow their children to play with Play-Doh because it's very messy. And I understand that, especially if you're a renter and you have a deposit that you'd like to get back when you move. So I get that. And so I just explicitly show them. I show them the Play-Doh, and I show them the rolling pins, and I show them how to roll it out flat and then to press the cookie cutter into the dough. And they're usually wowed. It's like I just created fire. Yeah, you can get cookie cutters anywhere. The Dollar Tree has them around the holidays. That's where I got a lot of mine. You can find them in lots of different places. You don't have to spend a lot of money on cookie cutters. I have found them in all sorts of places over the years. But there I show them how you press it into the dough, and then you can peel around it, and you can make the shape. And I teach them how to do all of that, because if we make assumptions about what our kids know, we're all going to end up in trouble, because we can't assume that they know that this is a rolling pin, especially with the decline in the number of people who cook these days, right? A lot of busy families, mom isn't rolling out pies at home, you know, with the rolling pin or making homemade cookies. She's working. And they may never have seen somebody use a rolling pin before. Their first inclination might be a saber, sword, wand, you don't know. So I show them what it is, and I show them how to use it. And the thing that I like, some of you may have heard me say this before, I like the rolling pins that don't have the movable handles. Okay, so this one is all wood, okay, as opposed to this one, which is plastic, right? And do you see how this middle barrel rolls without any movement? I can just grip it and I can just roll with it. But this one is intentionally designed, right, for the early childhood crowd, because the only way you can make it roll is by putting your hands over the ends and then rolling it flat. And when you're doing that, do you see how this rounded end presses into this part of my hand, the palmar arch, right? And that's the area of the hands of the little kids in our classrooms. That's the area they need to exercise. So we're actually doing them a great service when we use rolling pins like this. That's not to say that these should be trashed, but these might come out later in the year. But that's why I like the wood rolling pins. This one is just flat and smooth. And then, and Tom has a link to my Amazon shop where I've put a lot of these tools I'm talking about are in my shop. So he will put a link for you if you just want to see a picture of what it looks like. And you can source them elsewhere if you prefer. But this one is really fun. They love this one. And you can ask them things like, how does that feel? Have you ever felt anything like that before? What does it remind you of? And again, it has the round pieces right there. And so when they roll it, obviously, it makes a really cool texture on the dough, right? Yes, and I saw some people talking about the recipe. So I have my very favorite recipe that I've used. It is the first recipe I ever made, and it's the one I use in my classroom most often. Occasionally we make special Play-Dohs or special doughs, but this is the Play-Doh recipe. Tom will drop a link to the recipe for you in the comments below. But this is the Play-Doh that I use and love with my kids in the Play-Doh center, or the Play-Doh tubs, if you will. It is so soft. It is so smooth. It takes a beating, right? It just holds up to really heavy use. And there's lots of ways you can color it. This one is not as vibrant as I would like, but that's okay. The best way to color it, I don't know that there's a best way, but I love to use Kool-Aid because it makes it smell good too. If that's a concern for you though, making it smell good, then you can use liquid watercolors. You can use gel food coloring that makes really nice vibrant colors, or food coloring just all by itself. And yeah, I love to make really vibrant colors. You can add glitter in there if you're allowed to use it. I'm still playing with the Play-Doh as I speak to you. So for gluten-free recipes, we had a guest expert here on the Pre-K Pages Facebook show a couple of years ago, Kathy Griffin, who was the Oklahoma champion for special needs, and her daughter has celiac, and she shared her views on Play-Doh in the classroom, and there are lots of gluten-free recipes. And if you give the recipe to the parents of the student who has celiac and you ask them if they would like to try it out for you, test it at home, and then maybe they'll be willing to send in a batch, because they're already buying the expensive flours and things like that that are needed to make the dough. So if you don't want to go out and buy the expensive things that go in the gluten-free Play-Doh, the parents of that child probably have that at home already if their child is that sensitive. But Kathy says that her favorite recipe, she just Googles gluten-free, and she said that there is no one that's better than the other, but that they use the gluten-free ingredients. And yeah, she's very knowledgeable on the topic. If you go to well, you're already here on the Facebook page, but if you go to the videos section and you type in food allergies, then Kathy's video will show up. We did talk specifically about gluten-free Play-Doh. So, there's another link that we have for you. We already talked about the printable Play-Doh recipe. Tom dropped that link for you. And then I have a tools and materials list. If you'd like to see the materials that I'm talking about, and by materials I mean like the cookie cutters and the rolling pins. Oh, I have a lot more tools too. The dough scissors. These are one of my favorites, but all of those are in my on my tools and materials list. So Tom has a link to that, and he will drop that for you. So if you'd prefer to see it in that type of format, you can do that. You can also pin that. But I encourage children to always roll the Play-Doh, right? Because when they roll the Play-Doh, when I introduce Play-Doh to them, I just show them a few things they can do, and I'm very sneaky. It's kind of like sneaking the vegetables into their mac and cheese. I show them that they can roll snakes and make pancakes, and then those things are great for fine motor skills. But then after they roll their snakes, then they cut the snake, right, with their dough scissors. Do you see that? And this is a kind of a precursor to introducing real scissors, because they're not sharp, they don't cut anything, they won't cut your hair, they won't cut clothing, they're just plastic, and they're not harmful in any way. But when the children are cutting the dough, they're putting that pressure on the scissors, and they can really feel the resistance, as opposed to a really thin piece of paper and a sharp blade or a semi-sharp blade. It's really difficult for them to feel what kind of pressure it takes to cut that and how to stabilize their wrist and all that. So when you use Play-Doh snakes, it's a precursor to cutting. And these are dough scissors, just like Play-Doh, dough scissors, D-O-U-G-H. And they're in my Amazon shop too, if you want to see what they look like. They're not commonly found everywhere. They're just specifically made for cutting dough, so more like a teacher resource type of a thing. I showed you a few of my rolling pins. Like I said, I love these textured rolling pins. Does the dough get caked onto the rolling pin and become a problem? Yes. And the way I solve that problem is by soaking the rolling pins in water. Now, I know they're wood, and if this was my wood cutting board, my expensive wood cutting board from home, or my expensive wood rolling pin from home, I wouldn't do that. But these have been soaked in water for many years and they still work. So I'm not really too concerned about that. You can see there's a little residue on there. Can you see that? There's a little residue on there, but it's not bad. And I just have a bunch of these textured wood rolling pins. And you can decide if in the beginning of the year, you might want to put out just the smooth ones. And then as the year goes on, you can switch out for the textured ones just to keep that engagement and interest going. Another thing that I love are my dough extruders. I shouldn't say the kids love these. Now this one is just very plain on the end, and the kids love it because, well, you know what they say. If you've ever seen these before, the kids say it right away every single time. It looks like when it comes out, but they have ones that look like spaghetti. Let's see if I can get it to work here. And so you push the dough extruder and it comes out the other end. So some of them will look like spaghetti when they come out. Stars, they have all different kinds of dough extruders. That's the technical name for these. I did not know that when I had Play-Doh when I was a kid, and I think I had like the pump, the Play-Doh pump. Does anyone remember that? Where you would pump it and the Play-Doh would go through and come out the other end. I had no idea that was really called a dough extruder. But yeah, kids love these. These are great for fine motor skills. And does the dough get stuck inside and make a mess? Yeah, but these are plastic, so I put them in the dishwasher. It's not a big deal at all. I'm sitting here picking it out of the extruder right now. But these are super cool. Kids love these. They're super fun. You can change out the the types of extruder ends that you put out, again, to add that, keep their interest and hold their attention and increase engagement. What else do I have in here? Oh, I have a bunch of stuff. Tongs, and these are actual Play-Doh tongs. I found these at a garage sale or Goodwill. I can't remember what. But if they roll little balls, so remember how I told you I teach them how to make pancakes and snakes? I also teach them how to roll balls in the beginning. And again, I'm being sneaky because when they roll the ball, they have to use that palmar arch, right? That puffy little part of the middle of their hand. That's eventually going to be used to support their grip on the pencil, right? So when they roll balls, right? And of course, sometimes kids will say, they're making whatever, meatballs or whatever it is they're making. But then they can use the tongs to pick them up and transfer them from place to place. And these are actual, I think, Play-Doh. They say Play-Doh on them. I found them in a garage sale, but you can get all kinds of tongs from anywhere, any Walmart kitchen supply aisle. Now these are my bunny tongs. They have these Walmart and Target around Easter, but they're 2 spoons, right? Now the kids are practicing their pincher grasp. Do you see that? And it's precursor to using scissors, and they can pick up the balls and transfer them that way. And because it's a spoon, look at that. They love these things. I call them the bunny tongs, and I have them in a bunch of different colors. And I don't limit these to use at Easter. I have these babies out all the time because those kiddos who really need that practice, opening and closing, that scissor motion, right? That fine motor practice, those kiddos who are usually frustrated by regular scissors, they can use these because they're not actually cutting paper. They're just using them to pick things up. So they can pick up balls of Play-Doh with them. So these are super fun. And if you want to, I found these at Dirt Cheap this year, and they're Easter eggs filled with Play-Doh. And so I thought that was a brilliant idea. If you want to have little individual amounts of Play-Doh for kids, you could, oh, there goes my egg top. You can store them in Easter eggs. I thought that was really cool. But I found these at Dirt Cheap in these Easter colors. They're super cute. there's so much in here. I have this pizza cutting wheel. Well, I call it a pizza cutting wheel. I don't know why, but I guess because I think of cutting pizzas with it. They love this. They love, love, love it. I mean, they know instinctively what to do with that. They roll it through the dough and they make little pizzas and they serve them up, and they just think that is the bomb. So yeah, and then I also had these scissors that I got. These are also plastic scissors. They don't really cut anything. And I've used these in the Play-Doh Center as well. Okay. Another thing before I forget, a lot of you like to use Play-Doh mats. And I don't know if you know this or not. Some of you know this. But there's a free section at Pre-K Pages in my shop of free printable Play-Doh mats. So there's a ton for all the different themes. There's a fire safety one. I know that's coming up for a lot of you. For all the different seasons and holidays, we have free printable Play-Doh mats. They're mostly 10 frames, and the kids can roll balls and put them in the 10 frame. So they're getting counting practice as well as fine motor at the same time. So you can go to the free section. Now my hands are covered in Play-Doh. You can go to the free section of Pre-K Pages and grab your printable Play-Doh mats. They're free. I talked about, and we have a page at Pre-K Pages that kind of has everything. So it has pictures of the Play-Doh area or center in action. It has the materials list. It has a link to the free Play-Doh mats. It has links to some other things. It has a link to the recipe. And that page, Tom will drop a link to you for you as well. It's Play-Doh Center Pictures. I have it labeled as Tom. So here's, and I know that a lot of you have seen me talk about this before. They don't carry them on Amazon anymore, but these are from Lakeshore. Can you see that? That's upside down. There we go. Lakeshore. So you've heard me talk about these dough stampers before. I've talked about them a lot over the last several years that I've been on Facebook Live. But they are the bomb because I've never been shy about my dislike of alphabet cookie cutters. I don't like alphabet cookie cutters because the shape doesn't really resemble the real letter. They're very, like what I call cartoony, right? But look at this letter stamp. So the kiddos, they hold it in their hand like that, right? You can see them white knuckling it, right? They hold them in their hand like that, and they just stamp them right into the dough, and they pull them out, and look, no dough got stuck. So they don't, they're very, very durable. I've had this set for years and years, and they come in upper and lowercase. You have to buy 2 sets. There's an uppercase set and a lowercase set, but so worth it. So yeah, check this out. They're just awesome. And you can put them in the dishwasher. They're super sturdy plastic. You know, I'm all for that all natural holistic stuff, but when it gets heavy use like these things do, it needs to be durable. So Lakeshore Learning has these. I don't have a link for you, but if you go to lakeshorelearning.com and type dough stamper into the search box, they will pop right up. Now, they're not cheap. They're not a bargain. They're not dollar store, but they will last a lifetime. I've never had one break. They get dropped on the floor and stepped on all the time. They really do take a beating, and they really do stamp well, and they look like the letter that they're supposed to look like. Like, I can't stand like the letter P. If it was a cookie cutter P, the little hole in the middle would get stuck, and they just become a mess, and they really don't look like letters. So these are much better. They also have numbers too. I think the numbers come with the uppercase set. So what you can do in your Play-Doh Center, if you need or want to add a little bit of literacy or math to your Play-Doh area, then you can put out word cards or number cards, and they can. I stamped it too hard and now it won't stand up. And you can put those out, and then they can stamp in Play-Doh underneath those cards using the letter stamps. So I really, really like these a lot. And yeah, the only thing is that if you don't have some kind of storage system for them, they will make noise because the kids will dig. Listen to this. Imagine 5 or 6 kids doing that to the tub. It is loud. So some of the folks that have visited our site before at Pre-K Pages have told us they like to turn egg cartons upside down if you're allowed to use them. I know not everyone is. And you poke holes in the bottoms of the cups, and you can stand the letter stampers up in there. There's lots of different DIY ideas you can use to organize these. They used to sell an organizer that went with them for extra, of course. I never owned it, but having some kind of system to keep them upright is really in your best interest, because they, like I said, little kids, and you know this, they don't have a lot of persistence or patience. And so when they can't find exactly what they're looking for, when they're looking for it, they will bounce. So their frustration levels will rise, and they may leave that center. So if you have kids bouncing around, you know what I mean? So we reduce their frustration level by making it such that they're easy to find the letters that they need or want. So, because they're always saying, I can't find my letter, I can't find my letter. Instead of saying, look for it, look for it, look for it, which never works, you can just make it easier for them to find. And sometimes I find that I have to actually model how to look for a letter stamp. Like I will say, okay, now I'm going to make my name, and my name starts with the letter V. So I'm going to look for the letter V. The letter V looks like this. Can you help me look for it? And we will actually practice hunting for a letter or a number, because a lot of them are used to having everything done for them and handed to them. And so that type of a skill can be a new skill for a lot of kids. So I show them how that works. Once a few kids get the hang of how to hunt for a letter, they start helping other kids. And there's some kids that are really good at it. They really have a good eagle eye, and they will help other kids find the letters. So, let's see. No problem, Debbie. I get it totally. Elena says she laminated templates of a boy and girl head without a face. Yes, and they can make emotions with Play-Doh. Absolutely. That's amazing. Awesome. There's so many ideas for Play-Doh. Another thing, and I forgot to get it out, are the Play-Doh trays. So I use those round chip and dip holders that you get from the Dollar Tree to set out Play-Doh explorations. So for example, like I'm talking about how I have these tubs here. This one isn't very spectacular, but I keep these things in the tubs. But one thing you can do is put some of the Play-Doh materials around the outside of the chip and dip tray. And where the dip goes, you put the Play-Doh, and then they can use those things that you've put out for Play-Doh exploration, especially if you keep your Play-Doh in your art center, because a lot of the items that you might use in your Play-Doh tray would come from the art center. So I might put a few rolling pins in there, and a few cookie cutters, and a few like loose parts in there as well, and invite them to use that tray to explore different things they can make. I just want to let you know the Play-Doh has been played with now for 20 minutes or so, and it's super soft. It feels awesome. Another trick that I use with Play-Doh is I store it in the refrigerator when it's not being used. I have found that I keep it in an airtight container, of course, and when it's not being used by children, so we get it out in the morning and make sure that it's not super cold. And although sometimes the kids in the morning will say, it's cold, I'm like, roll it in your hands, it will warm up. And then after school, we put it back in the fridge, and it just helps with the lifespan of the Play-Doh. And as far as how often do you make it, that's really going to depend on you and your licensing agency, if you have one. So some of you have to answer to a higher power as far as licensing goes, and they often will have regulations on that. If your program demands that it's new Play-Doh every day, then that's what it is. If they demand once a week, once a month, whatever. And if kids are sneezing in my Play-Doh, I throw it away. I mean, So again, you want to practice good hand washing with them before and after they use the Play-Doh, because there could be germs on their hands before they get to it, right? And then to get the Play-Doh off their hands when they're done. So we want to encourage that hand washing before and after. Just know that no kids are really spectacular at washing their hands. I haven't met one yet. And so we do occasionally get soap bubbles in the Play-Doh. And it can sometimes, if it's bordering on being a little mushy, and then they come to it after they've washed their hands, it gets mushier because they've added water to it. So just FYI, I've never met a good 4-year-old hand washer. Colors, I don't care about the colors that they use. One thing I do is I do change out the colors occasionally of the Play-Doh, but as far as mixing goes, I figure that's a bonus. What happens when you mix those two? Oh, now it's brown. Interesting. What does that tell you? Ask open-ended questions. The color mixing thing is something that bothers us as adults. It bothers our adult brain and our very organized way of thinking. That's not how children usually think. So I see the color mixing as a learning opportunity and an exploration for them, and not as we can't mix the colors because then they would be mixed. And I don't see the bad in that. But one thing you can do is you can just put out 1 or 2 colors if that's a problem for you. So yeah, I have a couple of colors out usually for each different unit of study or theme, just because I feel like kids need to have more than one choice. And sometimes it helps. Like I usually will have a couple of, like, say 4 or 5 little individual tubs. Here's what I'm using. This is like a little storage container from the dollar store. It has a lid. And I will have 4 or 5 of these, and they will already have Play-Doh inside. And sometimes it helps, how when kids are going to a center and they're all grabbing for stuff, and I want this and I want that. Sometimes I'll give them a choice and I say, would you like the orange Play-Doh or the purple Play-Doh? You know what I mean? Giving them a choice always. And if you've watched my show for a long time, if you're a long time viewer, then you've heard me say this before, but anytime you can give a kid a choice and it doesn't matter to you, then you're kind of depositing in that bank, because when kids make choices, they feel powerful, and empowered children learn more. So I don't care what color Play-Doh they have, do you? So I let them choose. They think it's a big deal. I don't care. It's a win-win. So yeah, anytime they can choose. Sabrina says they mix blue and yellow when you study green. Absolutely. There's so many great things you can do with color mixing. Our schools give each child their own Play-Doh in a bag, and we replace it halfway through the year. There's tons of different ways to do it. Absolutely. I love using loose parts with Play-Doh. It's amazing what they come up with, because even without loose parts and just Play-Doh and nothing else, they come up with the most amazing things, So add loose parts and the sky's the limit, right? Yeah. Loose parts are just things that you might have around in your art center. They could be anything, really. They could be pine cones, they could be wiggly eyes, pipe cleaners, buttons, you name it. Anything that's just a loose part that you have laying around could be, yeah. All right. Hey, Anne-Marie. All right. Ooh, tortilla presses. Kelsey, that's awesome. Oh, yes. Permission to smash. What could be better than that? Yes. Yes. And my kids make tortillas all the time on their own, so adding a tortilla press can only be more fun, right? The bottles behind me, those are water beads. Yeah, so okay, so those are some of my tips. We've got a printable Play-Doh recipe for you, and Tom has dropped that link for you in the comments. We've got a Play-Doh tools and materials list. We've got my Play-Doh page at Pre-K Pages, where you can see pictures and have links to all of these things. We've got the free Play-Doh counting mats at Pre-K Pages. You can go and grab those. There's lots of them. A couple of years ago, Tom and I spent several weeks making printable Play-Doh mats for almost every theme that we had. You've got the link to my Amazon shop if you want to see any of the tools that I showed you up close, and my free printable center labels. So if you wanted to label your tubs in any of your centers, then you're going to want to grab those. They're in our free Facebook group, Preschool Teachers Are Superheroes. I'm Vanessa Levin from Pre-K Pages. I hope you got some ideas that you can take back and use in your classroom or with your children. And if you know anybody who could benefit from these Play-Doh ideas, then go ahead and share this broadcast with them in any way that you would like to do so, whether that's tapping the screen, sharing, whatever. Lori says, I can't thank you enough. Oh, you're welcome. Yes, that's awesome. Jackie says you're the highlight of my Monday. Oh, Jackie, I don't know if that says more about me or you. Thank you. That's very sweet. Let's see. Those tortilla presses take a lot of strength to push, so it's a great muscle builder. I can totally see that. I love that idea. Yes. Ooh, arigato. Hey, Ivy. Awesome. Okay, guys, I will see you Wednesday right back here on the Pre-K Pages Facebook page. And until then, I hope you have a safe and great Monday evening. I'll see you later. Thanks a lot. Bye.